Welcome to HumanityWins.net. Please read the important disclaimer on your screen. All of the content provided is for entertainment purposes only. It should not be taken as medical or legal advice. Please contact your doctor or lawyer if you require such advice. Thank you. The show starts right now. Hello, welcome to this new episode of HumanityWins.net. This is episode 217 from June the 23rd of the year 2022. Today is a Friday. Today's episode is the incredible story of British Airways Flight 5390. So we go back to another episode about aviation. This was a very happy accident because there was no loss of life at all. It was a very, strange thing that happened on this incident that I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a second. I want to start with a little channel update that you probably saw on Wednesday. I had my first ever African guest, Lomoro from Nairobi, Kenya, decided to join the show. I want to explain a little bit because there's probably some confusion for the ones that haven't seen the announcement on the Africa program. Africa, I Want You on the Show, I call it like that. It's very simple and easy. It's basically, I'm offering $25 as a donation for a 25-minute chat. It has some strings attached. The best way to explain it is please go and look at the episode with Lomoro. Basically, it's a different type of chat. It's not something that like the chats I have with my friend Tony and others that we discuss a subject. Really, the environment is not of relevance. Tony's at his house. I usually take the call at my office. It's not of relevance. On this one, I want to do it something different, and I think Lomoro really hit the nail in the head. So I'm going to use it as reference for the second chat whenever that happens, that I want something like that. It has to be with your cell phone to show the environment of your city, the beauty of Africa. So such a different place. Every place in the world is beautiful if we find the beauty in it. So that's the first string attached. The second one is just a requirement. I invested a little bit of time to try to send this money to Africa. It's very difficult. So in this case with Lomoro, he had a PayPal account, and I think that's going to be a requirement going forward. If you want to join this, that either you or someone you know, so you can get the money eventually, has a PayPal account. I looked into different methods, and that it's just too complicated, to be honest. They make it so difficult to send the money. Then because I already have a business PayPal account, I cannot get a personal one. It's kind of cheating, so I don't really want to do that. So it's a mess. I thank Lomoro that he had a PayPal account and made it so easy to send the money. And it's a very important part. And no, this is not like a job or I'm paying to get guests that agree with me. No. Go look at the Lomoro episode. There was nothing like that. It's a different kind of chat. It's really trying to learn a little bit about each country in Africa. So for the ones that really maybe I'm not saying not interested, but they just don't have the time to investigate. There's a continent out there. It's beautiful. It's called Africa. It's thriving. It's growing. So I don't know. It's just my little way of trying to bring more attention to Africa. I know maybe for you, some of you might sound a little bit silly, a little bit strange. How is this guy paying? When usually most of the channels are actually asking for money. Okay, I know that's the way it is. And the bigger channels, it's a business. I've said it many times. It's a business. Okay, the ones that really have grown, it's a full ones. Okay, we don't have to go with the brand names. Even smaller channels that they're trying just to create it like a business. Is respectful. I don't agree. I have my business. That's my thing. This is a different thing I'm trying to do with this. And for me, the only way to keep it organic is to keep the money out, okay? But it's not just me, okay? I just want to share. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really liked it. I watched it already 2-3 times. I was very excited. I've been working a little bit hard on deadlines on one of my projects, so that's why I look a little bit tired on the video. We also started kind of early, so it was still day out there in Kenya, which is 9 hours ahead. This was because as most parts in the world, when we get to the night, it gets a little bit more dangerous, unfortunately. So to do it out there, we had to do it through the day. So we started a little bit early. That's the reason I look a little bit tired on the video. Having said all that, let's start with the amazing, incredible story of British Airways Flight 5390. First of all, the plane BAC 111, that's why I call it BAC 111. It was the British attempt at the DC-9. Very similar airplanes, twin engines in the back, no engines on the wing. Very similar design, what is called T-tail, as you can see on the screen. Basically, the rudder is out there in the upper part of a T-tail. And That's to keep it away from the engines, of course. This is basically the same design of the American-made Douglas Corporation DC-9 that later evolved into the MD-80 series and later evolved into the MD-95, at which time the Douglas Corporation, at that time McDonnell Douglas Corporation, was bought by Boeing. You, of course, know Boeing, one of the major manufacturers of airplane civil airliners in the world, with Airbus, the other one. And Boeing converted this MD-95 model to the 717, which is still active, the 717, not so much the DC-9. DC-9 basically no, and the MD-80s in some countries. Again, this goes back, the older the airplane, the more fuel it consumes, and that's just basically the economics and noise factors and that. The older the airplane, more noise it creates, and there are noise restrictions, emissions restrictions, and basically for fuel consumption, that's the major one. That will get some of these airplanes out of usage. The Mach 111, I think there's none flying anymore. Maybe a couple here and there in some, for testing or anything like that. I don't think it's economically feasible to run the Mach 111. But this flight was in 1990. Actually, amazingly enough, even if it was a 60s design, it was still produced until 1989. I was surprised when we started doing a little research on the show for this topic. I wouldn't have guessed it was produced all the way to 1989. I don't remember. I mean, I've flown on the Mach 111 in the 80s a couple of times on British Airways, but I don't recall seeing them at airports and that much. I think 244 were produced, so it's not a very used airplane. I assume most of you or some of you don't really know it at all. It's a little bit strange looking. It was a decent airplane, a good airplane. I mean, it had a good safety rating, good safety story. It has nothing to do with this accident, by the way. It's nothing related to a defect or something. This is a mistake in maintenance, okay? Unfortunately, this airplane required a windshield replacement. Out there in the cockpit, you see it in the screen right now. I don't know, you see the pilot out there in the left part when it says County of Shropshire, I think. You can see the pilot out there. Well, one of those windshields required a replacement. Okay, the one in the side of the pilot, which is the left seat. If you see it going back to front. If you see it outwards from the cockpit, is the left seat, and that windshield required a change. I don't remember if it was just maintenance, preventive maintenance, or I think it was cracked, probably with a bird strike, with something struck the windshield, and it required a replacement for the aircraft to continue operating. The problem was, this was a major mistake. Again, you cannot make these mistakes during aircraft maintenance. That a technician that was doing the maintenance couldn't find the proper bolts. Yes, it was that, the proper size of the bolts for the specification of this windshield. And he decided to put a different size, thinking it was gonna be the same. Not at all. It doesn't matter if they're bigger, it's just not the same. Okay, the thread gets damaged, it's just not the same capacity to sustain pressure by the bolt. And that, as soon as this aircraft, which by the way, they're pressurized, so it's like they're inflated in a way you want to think about that. The pressure inside is much more than the pressure outside. That's why when you see movies when there is some kind of structural failure with a gun, with a bomb, something like that, everything starts flying out, seats, people, luggage, and that, because the pressure is much more inside of the airplane than outside. There's very little pressure outside. So, in Newtonian physics, things have to go from inside the airplane out. It's not like things will be pushed inside. That would be the opposite if the pressure outside was bigger than the pressure inside. No, the aircraft is maintained at a much higher pressure for the comfort and for the amount of oxygen and that thing. Is usually kept at the pressure around 2,500 meters of altitude, or 1.5 miles in altitude. And so with that pressure, it's like being in Mexico City, for example, or in Denver, Colorado, or something like that. It's not certainly a more manageable pressure such as sea level or 1,000 meters. No, but it's a pressure that you're at a decent. You're comfortable in a way. It's impossible that the airplanes are not pressurized. We couldn't breathe if we will have the same pressure as outside. Okay, so in a way, that's why it's very important that everything including windshield, all the windows, everything. There's no failure in the maintenance because, again, as soon as the airplane is pressurized, there's going to be eventually a failure. If it's not in the first flight, it's going to be eventual, okay? So without further ado, because I took some time from this for this episode for the channel update, let's watch a 8-minute video. I know it's a little bit on the long side, but it's very interesting how they present the whole accident. They explain everything that happened, and then I'm going to give you very quickly my final thoughts on this short Friday episode on the incredible story of British Airways Flight 5390, BAC 111, as I like to call them, the BAC 111. Okay, let's watch it together.
8:20 a.m. British Airways Flight 5390 was getting ready to depart from Malaga Airport in Spain. The June 10 flight in 1990 was about to turn into a life-threatening experience that none of the passengers were going to forget for the rest of their lives. This was because they got to see their pilot flinging lifelessly above the blown-out cockpit. This was one of the craziest incidents that a flight crew and its passengers ever had to endure. How many flights do you know where the co-pilot had to operate the aircraft alone while the main flight attendants held on to the feet of the pilot's frostbitten body? From Birmingham Airport in England headed to Malaga Airport in Spain, the BAC 111 528FL was going to be remembered even 30 years after the incident. It was a hot and sunny summer's day. All of the passengers were excited to get on board the aircraft. In fact, there were 81 of them to be exact. Along with the 6 crew members, the aircraft totaled 87 people inside. Nigel Ogden, Simon Rogers, and Susan Gibbons were the stewards and stewardesses on board the aircraft. They were part of the old crew, and this was just like any other normal flight for them. There was only one member of the crew that had just flown in from Manchester that morning. His name was Alistair Atchison. He was an experienced co-pilot, but he didn't really have the expertise required to handle the plane all alone. This is probably why Tim Lancaster was assigned as the plane's pilot, or as the Brits call them, captains. Just before boarding that morning, Captain Tim made sure to properly examine the outside of the plane, making sure that everything was in pristine condition. The co-pilot was checking the release of the aircraft before taking off, and it turns out that the plane was just released for maintenance. By the looks of things, everything seemed fine and the flight could finally begin. The pilot, as usual, addressed the passengers and told them that they would be having a pleasant flight. Again, this is the same old you see on any other plane. You get on board, the pilot welcomes you on board and wishes you a pleasant flight. The stewardess gives you instructions in case of emergency. However, no amount of flight attendant's instructions could have ever prepared this crew for the emergency that was about to happen on board flight number 5390, mainly because nothing like this had ever happened in the history of aviation. The flight started at 8:20 in the morning, and the pilot immediately smashed that like button if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, he actually took off, not wanting to lose a moment of precious time. It took less than 10 minutes to take the aircraft to a height of over 10,000 feet, and at 8:33 local time, the plane had just reached an altitude of 17,300 feet, or 5,300 meters, while flying over Didcot, Oxfordshire. Seeing how everything was going according to plan, the flight attendants were getting ready for meal service. Nigel Ogden, flight attendant, walked into the cockpit to ask the pilot and the co-pilot if they'd like anything to drink. As soon as they ordered their usual cup of tea, Pilot Tim loosened up his lap belt and released his shoulder harness. Seconds later, he would realize what a huge mistake that was. On his way out, a huge bang could be heard. Before they even realized it, the left windscreen panel blew right off the aircraft and sucked the pilot outside due to the rapid decompression in the cabin. Just as this was happening, condensation filled up the cabin where the passengers were sitting. Moments later, panic quickly filled the room, and people could no longer look at that oxygen mask that had fallen from above. They wanted to know what had happened to the aircraft since turbulence had overcome and shook this seemingly unbeatable plane. Before anyone had realized it, pilot Tim Lancaster was propelled out of his seat head first out of the flight deck. Luckily for him, before his body could fly out from the airplane and land inside the turbines of the engines and cause major damage, his knees were caught in the flight controls. This probably saved a major engine failure that would have easily brought down the plane. The pilot was now forced to endure the freezing cold temperatures at 17,000 feet as his body was being constantly slapped on the side of the cockpit by the heavy winds. With all of this happening, the autopilot disengaged, and this caused the plane to do a very rapid descent. When you couple that with the fact that the flight deck door had just been thrown into the avionics and destroyed the control console, this meant that the aircraft would begin gaining speed as it was going down. The passengers couldn't really see what was going on inside. They can only hear yelling and screaming coming from the cockpit as papers and small parts flew back into the cabin. In this moment of distress, Ogden's rush of adrenaline had prompted him to jump in and grab Lancaster's belt to hold him so he wouldn't fly out of the aircraft. While he was doing this, the other 2 flight attendants were helping him calm the situation in the cabin, since everyone was distressed and questioning whether they would survive this flight. While the flight attendants had a firm grip on the pilot, the co-pilot Atchison began a rapid emergency descent. He knew that the oxygen masks wouldn't provide enough breathable air and cabin pressure for the entire crew for very long. He realized that they needed to get the plane to a low enough altitude so they would have sufficient air pressure to survive. As soon as they reached a manageable altitude, the co-pilot immediately issued a distress call. Air traffic control could hear him, but Atchison could not hear air traffic control because of all the noise. Because of this, the team was unable to initiate the necessary emergency procedures in time. This is precisely what made the flight unforgettable and not in a good way. As Atchison was trying to establish communication with air traffic control, he was still holding on to Lancaster, who was suffering from frostbite and exhaustion. This caused him to walk away with his hands bloodied and partially frozen. Immediately after, John Sherwood and Simon Rogers, the other two flight attendants, quickly grabbed a hold of Lancaster, and they kept watching as his bloodied face was looking at them with eyes wide open. But there was no sign of life in them. The two pilots thought they had lost the captain. In fact, when Ogden walked into the cabin to take some rest, a female passenger asked him what was going on, and he just said that the pilot was probably dead. This was devastating news. The people couldn't believe that the man who had just informed them that they were going to have a pleasant flight was now gone. Panic was rising in the cabin, but co-pilot Atchison was determined to get a good connection with air traffic control. It seemed as if his tireless attitude had paid off as he heard instructions to land at Southampton Airport. A few minutes after this, more good news followed. The two flight attendants that were holding Lancaster managed to free him from the flight controls, and now they could hold him without worrying that his legs would break. At exactly 8:55 local time, the aircraft landed at Southampton, and the passengers finally were able to deboard the aircraft using the boarding steps. While the passengers were getting out of the aircraft, the two flight attendants were slowly and carefully pulling Lancaster inside the cockpit. Now the question was, is the captain still alive? By sheer luck, the pilot had survived with frostbite, bruising, and fractures to his right arm, left thumb, and right wrist. These were just some of the major injuries that the captain had to deal with. Immediately after the plane landed, police went on an investigation to find what happened during the 35-minute flight that almost killed its pilot. After a lot of searching, they managed to find the windscreen panel that flew off the airplane, and it landed all the way in Chelsea, Oxfordshire. Close inspection, they found something quite disturbing. You see, the windscreen was installed 27 hours before the flight, and even though they used all of the 84 bolts necessary, almost all of them were the wrong diameter, smaller than called for by the maintenance manual. Only 6 bolts had the correct diameter, but even those were about 1/10 of an inch shorter than the required length. A lot of people were found responsible, from the engineers to the Birmingham airport, and even, get this, the policies that were put into practice. And this is understandable when you realize that the aircraft B-528FL was first flown in February of 1971, almost 20 years before this horrific flight. Even though some of the crew members received prestigious awards like Susan Gibbons and Nigel Ogden, who were ordained with the Queen's Commendation for valuable service in the air, and Atchison was given a Polaris Award in 1992, they didn't retire the aircraft. It was repaired and quickly returned to service. It would take on many more flights in the ensuing 3 years until it was sold to Jaro International in 1993. The plane's last flight with Jaro International was in 2001 when the company failed. But what happened to Captain Tim Lancaster? He didn't receive any awards, and he was the most traumatized during the event. Well, the man took 5 months leave and then returned to work at British Airways until 2003. After that, he joined EasyJet and worked with them until his retirement in 2008. Well, I guess he just really loves his job.
All right. So that as I said, it was a kind of long video, but it explained perfectly what happened with this incident. And as you can see, I'm sorry about the image, but you know, it shows this is a recreation for sure. There's no way this image was taken when it happened. That the captain was basically pulled out with this sudden traumatic decompression by the windshield basically falling out. Again, I must explain, the pressure inside the airplane is much higher than the outside. So what happened is when the bolts, which were the wrong size, were not able to hold the windshield in place, the windshield flew out and it fell down in, they mentioned the city there. So there was basically a hole and the pressure kept going out, and the force was so high, so big, that it took the captain outside. Unfortunately, his legs were caught up in the controls and he was able to hold on. I'm not sure, again, this is dramatization like they do in movies. I'm not sure if forcefully the body of the captain will have gone into two of the two engines or just fall down, but he would have died for sure, and he fortunately didn't die. Again, they exaggerate that saved the airplane. You don't know, and also the airplane with one engine it would have made it far more difficult, but for sure, with one engine, they could still land safely. I just quickly want to mention a few things. First of all, the will to live. We have heard these stories of people out there surviving through the desert, surviving, in cold temperatures, surviving without food for tens of days, 20 days, 30 days, just water, something like that. And it's amazing. And I think it's the will to live, okay? And in a good way, I want to mention, because I always share this idea that we shouldn't be afraid to die, but that doesn't mean we want to die. Actually, not being afraid to die, I think, is what makes you have the will to live, okay? So we have to clarify that if this captain was able to survive for many, many years after that, is because he had this will to live. I mean, it was very easy to give up. In the picture you're seeing in the screen right now. And basically, if you give up, your body gives up, and it's the end, okay? You are the one that is keeping your body alive, not the opposite, in these kind of situations. That's the first thing. The second thing is certainly the will and the capacity and the sheer valor of the first officer, the co-pilot. It's called both names, first officer, co-pilot, captain or pilot is both names work fine. And it was very difficult to do with the captain hanging from the cockpit, his feet out there, the noise, all this sheer wind coming out from the airplane to the out there because of the differential of pressure. He wasn't able to hear the instructions or the information from the ground, again, because of the noise. And he was able to get this plane safely in the ground without causing any casualties, any deaths. That was the amazing thing of this incident. That becomes that this is an incident and not an accident. Actually, that's the definition. When there are no human deaths, it's called an incident. When there are human deaths, it changes to an accident. Okay, so this is still technically an incident because there were no human deaths. Not even the captain died. So for me, there are these two things. And the third one I must add is this is one of the many reasons why you follow instructions, you follow procedure, okay? I remember reading about this accident, and the reasons are you cannot assume that some bolts are going to work the same as the actual size, specific size that is required, okay? There's a reason why this windshield was mounted with specific bolts. There's a reason for that, okay? There's something to it. So when maintenance is done to a civilian aircraft that handles, this aircraft, I think, can seat up to 119 people, then you have to be more careful than that. And I'm sure several people lost their jobs. I don't know if there were any criminal indictments or something like that. I don't remember that. But there's a reason why you do things by the book, okay? So this is another testament. You have to respect procedure, and you have to do things properly and not assume or just change the rules as you go. So I hope you enjoyed this short Friday episode. And again, I apologize if I took a little bit of time from this episode for the channel update and sharing my feelings on the Africa show. I was so excited. I'm very excited about this program. Please, if you are from Africa, please, if you know people from Africa, let's bring them on the show again. Maybe $25 is not that much, but I know in Africa can go a little bit longer ways than in the Western world. So again, this money comes from me. It's me with love to you. Hopefully this will change. Also, you don't know if someone sees you on the show, maybe offers you a job, maybe offers you a business opportunity. That's the intention, okay? To use the show as a platform for everyone in Africa and show how beautiful and diverse and and interesting Africa is. That's the intention. So thank you very much for allowing me to do that. I hope you enjoyed this episode on aviation. This week we had the episode on Tetris that's related to IT, gaming, and that. This episode on aviation, again, I'm trying to mix it up. Last week we had more heartfelt, we had the episode on love is the only energy in the universe. We had the episode that was, apparently very light on self-forgiveness. So I'm going to continue to mix it up. I'm also giving our star of the show, Tony, my good friend Tony from London, a little bit of a breather, but he certainly, most probably, will be back on the show next week. And again, I'm trying to mix it up. If you want to be on the show, please email me, hey@humanitywins.net. It's always there in the bottom left. And now with a new Twitter account, HumanityWinsNet, username in Twitter. You can tweet me, you can send me a direct message. I'm trying as much as possible to increase this outreach. And someone mentioned this week that we're growing very slow. And no, I'm not saying anything bad about that. Whatever the growth is, I've never looked into that. It's not the intention of the show. I don't intend to monetize this ever, okay? I'm not saying I'm not open to some business opportunity coming from the show, probably, but as far as asking for donations, selling you stuff, that's not my intention, okay? That's not my intention at all. As always, my intention, and when people ask, can I do something for you? Yes, stay for the last 3 minutes of the show, because that's the moment I share with you very quickly what I want to share with you. So if you're a new subscriber, please stay for the last 3 minutes of the show. Have a great weekend. Enjoy it with family and friends, and hopefully I will see you back on Monday. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Thank you for making it to this part of the video. This is my favorite part. This is where I suggest to you that you discover yourself. You are not what you have been groomed to believe. You are this incredible being without limits that has eternal life, amazing strength, infinite wisdom, and a big, beautiful heart. All your limits are always self-imposed. Your best version in this reality is inside you. Your only mission on this life is to become a beacon of love and guidance. This version is ready to be discovered today. How do you discover yourself? The discovery process is a personal one. No one can do it for you. Dedicate 5 minutes a day to talk to yourself and the universe. Request to be connected and ask, who am I? Where do I come from? You will start getting signs, breadcrumbs, and signals. You will notice how your notions about those realities start disappearing. No more hierarchies, no more competition, no more complaining, no more depending on others. Discovering yourself equals to breaking your matrix. Your self-imposed limits will fall, and you will be ready to serve humanity and help break this spell and deception on us. But you must be patient to allow others to wake up at their time, through their own free will. That will be really soon, you will see, and that will start a new world. As you work towards your best version, you will notice how all emotions don't serve you anymore. Hate, fear, rage, pride, loss, envy, violence, justice, true violence, judgment of others, and other emotions will disappear from your mind and heart. You will understand those emotions serve only the evildoers and are not you. Please try to be understanding of others that don't think or feel like you. Everyone has a process. No one is right or wrong. We're all just different. Don't be concerned about being right, ever. Don't allow pride preventing you from touching things up with family and friends. It is very important you enjoy this life with your loved ones. Put in the work to patch things up and leave it to others to decide. Please relax and enjoy life. When everyone breaks their own matrix, humanity through our community consciousness will break the final spell. The new world will start and everything will gradually fall. Governments, hierarchies, and the medical and financial system will go from scarcity to abundance for all. Thank you very much for watching. Please share this episode. If you have any comments or suggestions, please use the comment section below. For private questions, conversations, and if you would like to appear on the show, please email me at hey@humanitywins.net. Thank you again. Please don't forget to visit our website www.humanitywins.net. By giving me your time, you honor me. Have a very, very, very nice day.